Most of us think of language as a simple translation machine. You have a thought, and you press the keys to output it into words. One concept, one string of syllables. This rigid word equals thought process is the standard monolingual experience. When you only have one set of labels for the world, that single linguistic structure becomes the only path your thoughts can take. But modern psychology shows that a multilingual brain operates differently. It doesn't just store a second list of definitions, it moves away from linear processing to manage multiple competing systems at once. This requires a constant, invisible cognitive effort. The brain must actively suppress one entire language system while using another, filtering out irrelevant grammar and vocabulary in every sentence. This repetitive act of suppression and selection strengthens the brain's executive control center. By constantly resolving linguistic conflict, the mind develops a high level of mental endurance. Because the executive system is accustomed to filtering out massive amounts of linguistic noise, it becomes more efficient at managing distractions. This translates to a brain that can maintain focus and move between complex tasks when environmental pressure increases. Learning a language changes the brain's architecture. It shifts the mind from a single-track processor into a system designed for rapid, high-level adaptability. When the brain is no longer tied to one set of rules, it begins to favor concept-based thinking over word-based monologues. The brain visualizes a raw concept first, then selects whichever language has the most precise path to express it. An idea might be born as a feeling, then funneled through the specific syntax that fits the moment best. This freedom allows for a more varied approach to problem solving. If one language lacks a specific nuance for a complex situation, the mind can pull a more precise term or logic structure from another, expanding its capacity for creative thought. This adaptability extends to how the brain processes other people. When direct translation isn't enough to capture a cultural nuance, the mind begins to look elsewhere for data. This creates a heightened state of micro-detail awareness. The brain learns to automatically prioritize nonverbal cues, like a slight change in tone or a fleeting facial expression, to bridge gaps that words alone cannot fill. By navigating these different emotional and cultural frameworks, multilinguals develop a nuanced ability to interpret subtext. They become more adept at decoding the underlying intent of a conversation, rather than just the literal definitions of the words spoken. In this state, the brain is no longer just listening to speech. It is continuously analyzing the emotional reality operating beneath the surface. This level of adaptability leads to a psychological shift, the moving away from a single, static personality. Through contextual identity shifting, a person's confidence, humor, and even their emotional expression can change depending on the language they are using. These shifts occur because the brain is aligning itself with the specific cultural norms and social histories embedded within that language's vocabulary. This also influences how the brain encodes the past. It creates layered memory, where the same life events are stored along parallel tracks, each tied to the emotional atmosphere of the language spoken at the time. Because the emotional weight is tied to the language used, recalling a specific memory can feel different depending on which language you use to access it. An event that feels neutral in one language might feel deeply sentimental in another. For the multilingual mind, identity and memory become fluid experiences, shaped by the linguistic lens used to view them. Every language carries its own inherent biases and its own way of framing the world. By operating in multiple languages, the brain develops multi-lens perception. It views the exact same reality through different, overlapping cultural perspectives at the same time. This perspective discourages rigid judgment. When you can see the same concept described through 3 different cultural lenses, it becomes clear that there is rarely a single, correct way to interpret a situation. This awareness serves as a cognitive defense. Because the mind recognizes how different languages can frame the same event to elicit different emotions, it becomes easier to spot when a single narrative is being used to steer a specific reaction. A multilingual mind is doing more than just translating words. It is moving between entirely different human realities. If you speak more than one language, how does your own personality shift when you switch between them?
Tell us about your experience in the comments below.